Hi, welcome to Frankly Rustic. Thanks for tuning in. Today I'd like to talk to you about my miter saw, my DEWALT sliding compound miter saw. It's a DWS779 series. I bought this for a song and dance at Home Depot years ago. There was a DWS780 that was released with the laser light, I believe it was a laser light, and they wanted to push the model out. So the 779 series, they just wanted to get it out of their inventory, and I got it for a song. I believe it was $250 at the time. Great price. And it's been tried and true. It still is. It cuts dead on. There's no slop on the arm at all. It's really runs true. My only gripe with this machine is not having that light, and it's not often that you need it. So I wouldn't say that I can't cut with it. But when you're using wide planks and you make your mark, you can easily drop your blade, follow the kerf on the side you want to cut, and you're good to go. And you get accustomed to where that kerf is going to be when it's spinning up, so you actually get dead on after a while through experience. But when you have a smaller piece such as this one, it's hard to get the kerf onto the board when it's not going any further back. So you're kind of guessing where it is, and you might do several cuts by overcompensating and then cutting in closer and closer. And that's all fine and good, but if time is of the essence, and it is for me, I have a big project coming down with a lot of angle cuts, a light would really benefit me. And I've seen some great solutions on YouTube, and I commend them. They're really wonderfully done. However, those solutions that I've seen are for like the Bosch series, the Milwaukee, and their housing does not have the tight space that the DEWALT does. So adding a light such as this one of the YouTubers used, will not work. It just won't fit under here without being an obstacle with the protection shield. So I've come up with a solution using easy components you have in your house. An old phone charger, those little bricks, those little USB bricks, a USB cable, and I have here a USB circuit board light. This little guy is only, I think it was $6 for 10 of them. So imagine it's, $1. And it just plugs into your USB of any phone charger, and it lights up really bright. So what I'm going to do is implement this little circuit board up here into this housing that's originally used to retrofit an upgradable light, and wire it up so that you have yourself a light that you can shadow line through your blade and have a dead-on accurate line at all times. Stay tuned and I'll show you how it's done. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is make sure safety's first. Your saw is unplugged and does not work. Over here in this area is where the 780 model, the DWS780 model, is outfitted with the light. And it seems when they made the 779, it was probably made concurrently during the 780 model release, and this was the cheaper model. So fair enough, you can buy an aftermarket version of this light kit, but it does hit you at $80. So this kit I'm about to show you will only cost you a couple of bucks. So we're going to start off with these two screws that do use flathead screwdriver or a hex driver. I'm going to opt for the flathead because my hex drivers are little guys that are not really going to give me much leverage. And this just makes it much easier. To be honest, I feel these two screws are a little overkill for this light housing, but hey, better safe than sorry, I'm sure, for their legal department. Okay, so this is what we have here. Really an empty cover housing, right? Over here is a perfect spot to nestle that LED. So what I'm thinking of doing is taking this LED and having it right there, glued on, perhaps even epoxy, just to protect the very few circuits that are on there. There are very few components. We have a resistor and the 3 LEDs. And I do want to get it true to the center so that I definitely have an LED on each side of the blade. And if this one shines through the blade on both sides, fantastic. If not, those other two LEDs will do just fine. We'll work on running a wire through here, and then this little guy here is actually a wiring channel. So you can actually run the wire through to the other side and run onto this handle. On this handle, I'm going to retrofit a switch right about here. Now, there is, rather than going out and buying a switch, I do know that you can buy a Raspberry Pi power supply. Look that up on Amazon. Raspberry Pi is a microcomputer, one of these small, tiny microcomputers that you can buy. And the power supply is just a simple USB power supply, but they come with an embedded switch in line with the wire. Perfect for this scenario. The kit costs about $8. If you were to just buy a switch and use your own power supply from a cell phone, you're going to wind up spending about $5 to $6 anyway for that switch. Why not get a complete unit all wired up and ready to go, and all you have to do is hook up that wire to that LED circuit and you're good to go. So without further ado, let's get started with the wiring of the LED, and then I'll come back to this saw and we'll finish off the rest and mount the unit all together. So what I have here is the wire that's plugged in right now, and being careful to keep these leads separate apart. I've already determined using a voltage meter which one's positive and negative. Basically what you do is take the leads, touching the wires. Let's see if we can prop this up here so you can see while I fumble through the wires. And this is giving me 5 volts negative. That means I have this backwards. So my red lead should be going to the orange wire, and the ground lead to the blue wire. And as you can see, 5 volts positive. There's no negative symbol in my meter at this point. So most meters, when it's negative, there'll be a negative symbol. There's no positive signal if you're expecting to see that, if you have it correctly wired. So now I know the red is positive, well, the orange is positive 5 volts, and the blue is ground. Now, the wire that you'll purchase if you go the Raspberry Pi charger route will come with this switch already in line in this wire. That's great. I'll have to retrofit this in, no big deal, because I had these components. But again, for $7 to $8, somewhere $7 or $8 on Amazon, and the purchase of this little guy worth $1 for each one, in less than $10 you have yourself an LED light system for your miter saw. So what we're going to do is now make some holes right through the side and route the wire through, because I'm going to want to keep that wire hidden in as much as possible, and then solder it to this LED. On the LED, if you purchase this model, the bottom larger pad is ground. The top larger pad is the 5 volts. So you'll want to solder wires accordingly. 5 volts, ground. So what I have now is a partially assembled wiring job. I've made note of where the holes are. Now remember, when you're facing your saw, the holes, the mounting screws, were on the right side of your blade. That means the front is here. Looking at it upside down, make sure you're feeding the wire from this orientation, from this direction, with the screws on your right side and out, because this is the front and that's where the LED should be. Okay, just going to feed that. I'll likely speed this up, but just a heads up, what I have done off camera is I pre-tinned the pads, the top and the bottom pads. Again, the bottom pad is ground when it's facing this way, and the top pad is the 5 volt line. Excellent. All right. Success. May not appear bright on the camera, but trust me, it's hard to look at. This is going to give me spots before my eyes. But there we go. All right, next is the glue gun. I was thinking about it. The best course of action at this point with the glue gun would be to glue a dab right inside the hood area and then press this down onto the glue, the LED, right onto the glue, and center it and hold it there until it's pretty firm before I do any of the further gluing job. And when I say further, I may glue more in here just to take off any stress off the wire, perhaps some in here as well. That way there's no tension on the wire at any time. Okay, I think we're at a point where this has got temperature. I hope there's enough glue in there without having to feed a new stick. Yeah. Okay. Just a little dab in there. Try not to burn yourself. Position that LED. Wow, it's actually very easy to manage. It's holding it just right. Getting that centered. I want it to protrude just a little bit. I think that's it. Okay. It's actually quite firm already. Excellent. Now we'll glue the inside there. Okay, before I get too far, I realized I did something that I should have recorded. And I'm going to leave that measurement there for now, but this is what I've done. I've taken my light now, put it in place where it's going to be mounted permanently, ran it along this rim where this cover is. That's a wiring cover. We're going to be running it inside there. And then dropping it, because it's going to come out the bottom, and then finding where that point is. Where I taped is where I want that switch to be. And by that, I mean like so. Now for some major surgery. This is the mark where I want this switch to be. It's going to be there. Now I need to cut this wire open. I need to be really careful not to strip the wires. And same goes for when you're working on yours. And this is more of a reason why I'll keep mentioning the Raspberry Pi power supply. That's only $7 or $8. I say 7 or 8 because it does vary, but that's about the price range. Okay, so one option is to score down a line. I felt it come through. Hopefully I didn't go too far deep in there. All right. There we go. Let's try to get those wires out. Now I don't want to cut all these wires, don't forget. I only need to cut one of them. And the one you always cut is the hot wire. The hot meaning the 5-volt line. When you're doing electrical work in your house and you're replacing switches or you're adding switches into a room, make sure you never run the ground to the switch. To cut the ground, meaning the switch turns the ground off when you turn the switch off. You don't want to break the ground line. You want that to always be connected to the fixture. That way the switch is always ground and the fixture is always grounded. But you break and interrupt by turning the switch off the hot line, in this case, the orange wire. And that's the safe way to do it. Okay. Bear with me while I solder that in. Yeah, good. I took the old wire off. Let's see if that's on. Yes, it is. Excellent. Okay. All right. All right, let's test to make sure our light works. Yeah. Okay. Now we're going to take this wiring channel out that's over here. Sorry for the shadow line. In this area of my shop, I have the porous lighting. It's against the wall. So I'm using a little Milwaukee LED shop light to help me out. And it's casting shadows. Okay. Save that screw, don't lose it. Again, they're hex nut screws, but with a flat head as well. So you can use either or. And there we go. The way it's designed, you run the wire along this inner channel. You can see it. There's a nice channel in there, tuck the wire under. And it comes out through the back. Oops. Comes along this in the inside, drops down and out this little port. And that's where the wire will come out in the back side. So I'm going to wire that up next and get that buried in. Okay. First thing I'm going to do is actually screw this light fixture in place now. Just so that's one less thing moving around. And we don't have to worry about it at this point. There's no more work needing to be done on that section. Now we're just going to feed this wire where it wants to be. I really lucked out with the gauge. It's like they wanted me to use a USB wire. Okay. Now the easy route would be to take this shroud off, but I think I can avoid having to do that here. I don't think it's necessary. Okay. Lastly, a little hot glue in that spot. Let's give it a dab. Just hold it there for a little bit. Let the glue cool down and adhere. Okay. I believe we are set. And here we are. Light off, light on. Shadow line, nicely defined. You could even see the teeth widening the kerf area, so you can see exactly where the teeth are going to take up most of that cutout when you have a line. That's perfect. So what's nice about having a shadow line rather than the lasers you've seen out there is lasers do fall out of alignment. Everybody's complained about that, whether it's too much to the right or too much to the left. And you might get it dead on and you don't know it down the line. It's been creeping out of alignment and now your cuts are getting wasted. Shadow lines, it's always dead on. You have the light on both sides of the blade hitting down and causing a shadow line of the exact position of the blade. You'll always be dead on. No different than when you judge your teeth on your marks. The shadow line will be just as helpful, but this time your shadow line will go all the way through your stock. Now, you definitely draw your cut line through your stock, but sometimes there's difficulty with that. And I'll give you a good example of that is crown molding. Crown molding, you may get a mark on the end of the angle for a corner cut, or a mark on the inside angle of the corner cut. And getting that aligned, even though you have done your math, getting that aligned with where you slide in your stock could be off because you don't have the blade to go all the way into the inner side of your cut. Having a shadow line casts your entire stock of where it's going to cut, and you'll always be dead on. I hope this helps. Hope you guys try it out. I wouldn't say try it out. Hope you guys perform this upgrade. I take no responsibility if you do any bad wiring jobs. Please be careful. Safety first. Wear goggles. Unplug your units when you're working on them. Careful with your hot irons and your glue gun. Be extra careful. You're working with electricity. You're working with hot items. There is dangers to be had, and no different than woodworking. I just want to say this is a great improvement. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you want to see some more of my upgrade tips. I would like to know if you can comment below on what you'd like to see next. I do modify my CNC from time to time with some upgrades. Perhaps you're interested in that. I'll upgrade my equipment, or I'll actually just try out new tools that I've purchased. We all buy new tools and new toys and give it a shot. So please chat, comment below, subscribe, like this, and I hope to see you next time. Till then, take care.